Bukayo Saka! That is a diamond goal! Wanyeri tries one!
People keep asking if Bukayo Saka is back, and I haven't really had an answer. But now, yeah, I'm thinking he's back. This is Not That Kind of Gooner, an Arsenal podcast, and we are coming to you right about at the end of the international break, the last international break of the 24-25 season. And yes, what I said is true. Bukayo Saka is back. That is a little piece of good news that we started the day with over here in the States. It was kind of afternoon time when Saka fired off this Instagram picture of him at training, smiling, and then Arsenal followed suit and posted a different picture, basically indicating that the Star Boy's back in action. He is on the training ground. He's getting ready, maybe for Fulham. That sounds like definitely he'll be ready for Real Madrid. Which, man, I'm excited again. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Trent Alexander-Arnold almost definitely leaving Liverpool for Real Madrid on a free in the summer, and kind of what if that scenario happened on our end at some point, because it might. And we're going to talk about Martin Zubimendi, a.k.a. Zubi Dooby Doo, and we'll probably close out with a quick preview of Fulham's visit to the Emirates on, is it Monday or Tuesday? I know it's a weekday. It's one of those, but we're going to get to all that. I'm Sham. You can follow me on Twitter at Shamsdale and on Blue Sky at shamsdale.bsky.social. And with me to talk about all those things and whatever else we can think of within the next hour is Drew, who you can follow on Twitter at Geechee Kid and on Blue Sky at Supply and Demand Drew.bsky.social. Drew, how you doing, my friend?
I'm good. I just want to preface that I actually typed all that out for you on StreamYard, so it makes it easier for you to remember in the beginning and the end.
Yeah, you popped in, and I was like, what is all this? And I realized what it was, and I was like, this is good. This is, now I just have to read it.
Anything to make things smoother. I'm doing really well. I've been enjoying a week off from work, just like resting and recouping, having some good food, catching up on sleep, which we talked about the last time, which is really important, the older we get in life. I'm doing well, and obviously the soccer news made me quite happy earlier today as well. So yeah, it's been a good closing of the week almost, as we're almost at Friday. So
yeah. I'm looking forward to taking a week off from work in a couple months. That'll be nice. I mean, I guess let's just start with the Saka thing. I mean, how it kind of in the context of the season, and I think we've all kind of accepted at this point, unless just something absolutely miraculous happens, the Premier League is gone. But in terms of the Champions League, how far has the dial moved for you in the direction of we can do this now that it looks like Saka is going to be available for, at least one of those legs, if not both?
I mean, I was relatively confident even when we got drawn against Real Madrid, just because comparing them to Atleti, I just feel like we have a better chance against a team who is slightly more disjointed in defense. And then when you plug Saka back into the team, I feel like that gives us that much greater of a chance to actually pull off, what would be a massive upset in Europe. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, but having him back into the team, I mean, it's massive. Obviously, like we said, he still stands, was a joint first for big chances created in the Premier League, and he's missed however many weeks now. So, and the knock-on effect on the team as well. You have, White coming back into fitness, Saka coming back in. That's a lot of aid to Martin Odegaard, who we hope when you plug big pieces back in, that we'll get that uptick in form from him as well. So I'm hoping that big knock-on effect from all these players coming back. Obviously, Havertz isn't going to be back the rest of the season, but even still, you hope Martinelli comes in and he's going to find some form. Saka, same thing. Maybe White, same thing. So I think that's pretty big. Again, and for me, anything can happen against Madrid. Obviously, if we go out, none of us can be sad going out to the team who basically run into every Champions League campaign as the odds-on favorite to win it. So if we were to get knocked out by them, how sad could we really be? And honestly, we just go for it. Like you say, the league is most likely done unless Liverpool absolutely implode now after the Trent news, which we'll talk about later. So
They could do it. They could
and
do it.
anything is possible, but beyond some cataclysmic event, on Merseyside, I think the league is done. But I just think that little bit of boost of confidence with players and the manager and the fans, knowing that your best player, your most valuable player, is back into the team, that's huge. So we get it back in. Maybe give him some. I wouldn't necessarily start him against Fulham. I say you give him 30, 45 minutes, see how he does, because you don't want to rush them back, right? What happened to Mohamed Salah last season? He got rushed back, immediately got re-injured, missed another 3 or 4 weeks, right? So handle Saka with care against Fulham and then see how he does. And then if he's fit and ready for Real Madrid, then you start him, and then we go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm not even sure he'll get 20 against Fulham, but we'll see on that front. I think just like it's funny. I think it's almost more of a mental impact than it is an impact on the pitch. I mean, obviously, Saka's our best player. He's going to come back and he's going to raise the level on the pitch as well. I'm not trying to say that nothing is changing on the pitch, but I think, you've definitely seen this among the fan base, and I think this is probably something that's also happening among the team itself, where knowing that Saka is going to be back in time, knowing that he's going to be out on the pitch with them, I think that's going to instill that belief of, hey, we can do this. If we just play, a really good game, we defend well, and we're efficient in attack, we're smart in transition, and we get the ball to our best player, then there's something in this for us, and we can beat Real Madrid if just enough things break our way. But we're also an excellent team in our own right, and at this point we've really got the whole starting lineup ready to go without Kai Havertz, basically, and that's still a big loss. Havertz does a lot of things that no player in this team really can replicate, but having White and Timber and Saliba and Gabriel and probably Calafiori and Lewis Skelly and Rice and Odegaard and Saka and Martinelli and Winery, I think that's a group of players, and Raya, of course, I think that's a group of players who can get out there and get the job done. And so I think there's that, but then also just Saka is the X factor for us, and obviously we need to go back into the market in the summer and get some more X factor to kind of complement Saka. But that's the guy right now. That's the guy who you feed the ball to. So to have him available for this game, I think is massive. And I keep after every game, if we score, I do this thing where I post just a running tally of the goals and assists every player on the team has. Saka has stayed at the top of that list since he went down. He's had 22 goal involvements. I think that's 9 goals and 13 assists, if I remember correctly. Since December 21st, and no one's come close aside from Havertz. Everyone else is, I think sitting at like 14, 15 at the most. So, I think that just goes to show, how critical his output is for us. So, yeah, really excited about that. And also, fate might give us a hand here with these pending suspensions, maybe, or at least this UEFA investigation into Real Madrid. I haven't had time to really look into that, but Drew, do you happen to know any of the details regarding that?
So the benefit of me not working this week has been I haven't been bombarded with football news. However, the detriment is that I don't have any insights from what I've seen at work. So no. No, I mean, my guess would be that nothing's going to come of that, because we've seen time and time again that UEFA do sometimes favor certain clubs. Real Madrid usually do get the benefit of the doubt quite often when it comes to any kind of judgment, any kind of ruling, whatever it might be when it comes to UEFA. So I wouldn't expect anything from it. I'll happily be pleasantly surprised if something does. That might be something we could look into for next podcast for sure, because I will be back to work back then, so I can kind of maybe do a little digging and see what we can have a talk about. Maybe more news will break by then, but just on base reaction alone, I don't ever see a headline of UEFA investigating Real Madrid and think anything's going to ever come of it. I just don't ever think that's going to be a thing.
Definitely not in time for us to play them. I think the wheels of justice, if there is any, or if there is any punishment for Madrid, I think will come well after we've played them. But so really excited to have Saka back, and looking forward to seeing him back on the pitch. I just know the roar at the Emirates when he gets subbed on against Fulham is going to be crazy, and it's going to be lovely to see it. So. Other things have happened in addition to Saka returning. There's also the news about Trent Alexander-Arnold basically all but having confirmed that he's going to join Madrid on a free this summer. David Ornstein was reporting on it. Fabrizio Romano was reporting on it. And, we haven't gotten confirmation or here we go or anything like that. But the noise from those guys is it's on the cusp of happening. It's basically almost a done deal. So Liverpool fans have really gone into a bit of a meltdown about this. And, to an extent, I understand. I've enjoyed making fun of them for it, but I do understand at least being upset over the circumstances. But, for me personally, I think this is kind of more of a failure on the club's part than it is on Trent's part. But I mean, just 1,000-foot view here. What do you make of Trent joining Real Madrid, and what do you make of this argument that a lot of people seem to be putting forward that a player should look out basically for their club's bottom line and try to get their club a transfer fee for them if they're ever to leave the club?
I mean, that's not the player's responsibility. That to me is, I don't know. Let me try to kind of collect my thoughts. So for me, for baseball value, I don't blame Trent for leaving. I kind of feel like, yeah, I get it. Like, he's come through the academy. He's won the Premier League with them. He's won Champions League with them. He's born and bred that club, and he had the opportunity to write one of those almost kind of, now at this point, kind of those like fairy tale things in football where, like, you grow up, you play for the club that you love all your life. You play for them for the rest of your career. I mean, I get it. Like, that's storyboard stuff, and a lot of fans want to see it. But we're in a football age now where that's not the norm anymore. One club men and one club women, that's few and far between. And I kind of feel like unless you are at the very top of the sport, so if you come through the ranks at Barca, or if you come through the ranks at Real Madrid, there is no above that, right? So you seeing out your career with those clubs from start to finish makes a bit more sense. But the reality is, Real Madrid is the biggest club on the planet. Barcelona is second, and you probably put Man United third, Bayern fourth, Liverpool fifth. That's kind of the hierarchy in my mind. So it only makes sense where he's going to get a step up. He's going to get more money. He's going to perennially get a chance at Champions League every single season. He's going to perennially get a chance at league titles every single season, and not for nothing, he's going to be playing with better players. He has a chance to play with Mbappe. He has a huge friendship with Jude Bellingham. He gets to play with Bellingham now as well. Rodrigo's there, Vinny's there. Why wouldn't a player jump at that opportunity? And no, I don't think it's his responsibility to get Liverpool a fee. That's the brass's job. The brass's job is to either extend him early enough as to where if he does leave, it commands a transfer fee, or give him what he wants so you can keep him. So, and I think my thought was always, if FSG handled the contract negotiations better, more efficiently, sooner, he probably would stay, or at least a little bit longer, right? But he's coming up on the prime years of his career. He's never get another chance to move to Real Madrid while he's in his prime. This is the one chance you get. And I think if you ask any football fan if they had a chance to play for Real Madrid, they'd probably say yes, regardless. And we've had this talk before about Saliba or Saka or whoever, if they were to leave, how would we feel? And yeah, it would suck. It would absolutely destroy the fan base internally for I don't even know how long if we ever saw Saka leave and then go to Real Madrid. But you also couldn't blame him because at the end of the day, football is not just competitive, but football careers are quite short. So you have to maximize what you do in a very short space of time. Yes, you come through the ranks starting at 6, 7 years old, but you don't turn professional until 17, 18, 19. And most players are done by 35. So you're only having, a 16-year career, which pales in comparison to the rest of us who work everyday jobs, where if you start working right out of university at 22, 23, you're working for 40 years. Their career is 1/3 or, just about 1/3 as long. So I don't know. I just feel like the allure of a club that size, I just think that he was always going to leave, right? And you kind of can't blame him. And in terms of the fan response, I understand fans are upset or even angry, but it's the abuse part where I draw the line. There are a lot of fans that are, overreacting to it. I think, calling him a snake or saying like he was only stringing them along, but without, shining a light on how the ownership handled the negotiations. There's a reason why they, neither Virgil van Dijk nor Salah still have a new contract as well. It's not just Trent. So the fact that they're bungling their three biggest players and letting all three of those big players wind down, their contracts until months before the end of the season, that's at that point, it's not the player that's causing the problem. That's the ownership, right? So if anything, direct that anger more towards the ownership if I was in their position. But also I understand that like seeing one of your own leave does kind of suck. But, he's going to have 2 Premier League titles now and a Champions League win for the club. He's helped elevate them as well. Maybe he's on the right to go on and play for the biggest club in world football and enjoy the rest of his career there. Maybe he'll come back and finish at Liverpool. You never know. But also fans forget that Steven Gerrard tried to manufacture a leave from Liverpool twice.
Yep.
So it's not like Trent's the first one to do it. So, and as Arsenal fans, we've watched Henry leave. Obviously, he didn't come through the academy, but we've watched our top players leave on repeat for a very large portion of.
We watched Fabregas and Nasri leave in the same summer.
Right, exactly, and these are players that Arsenal fans absolutely love, particularly Fabregas, who he didn't come fully through the academy, but he first came into the academy and then broke into the senior team very quickly when he came from Barcelona. So that's the closest you could probably get. And then now that we see him go to Barcelona, we then saw him play for Chelsea. So yeah, no, I just kind of feel like it's hard, and I won't begrudge fans from being angry about it or upset about it. But at the same time, I think most of that frustration has to be levied towards FSG because they're the ones fumbling negotiations for 3 pieces who you want to nail down to contracts no matter what you can do. So
yeah, I think for me, it's really like two separate things here that just kind of bother me with the way that people are reacting to Trent leaving. I mean, the first thing is, he's already lived the dream for both himself and for fans. I mean, what do you want more out of, supporting a club besides seeing a player come out of your own academy and then go on to win you multiple Premier League titles and a Champions League title and some cups, as well. He's won everything there is to win for Liverpool. I mean, we're to put it bluntly, we're still sitting here praying for the day that we can watch Saka lift a Champions League trophy or a Premier League trophy. Even the FA Cup that we've won with him being a part of the team, he didn't start that game. And so, he played kind of a bit part in it, if I remember correctly, if he even played. So, seeing those pictures of him lifting that trophy felt a little hollow. But, Trent, again, came out of the Liverpool Academy, won these trophies with them, and, really, really checked all the boxes for what you want to see in terms of a best case scenario with an academy player. And it's just kind of funny to me because so I married into a family of Patriots fans, and when Tom Brady left to join the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, just all of my in-laws just had very negative feelings toward Tom Brady after that. So whenever the Buccaneers were playing and we had it on TV, like someone would walk by and be like, "Oh, is Brady playing? Is that Snake playing? Is that Trader playing? And it's like, he won you 6 Super Bowls. Like, what do you want from him? You drafted him, and he had the greatest achievement that an NFL player has ever had, playing for you guys, and then he decided to go and have another challenge somewhere else. So that's the first thing that just kind of irks me a little bit in terms of how Liverpool fans are responding to this Trent transfer. And the second thing is, like you said, Drew, it's not the player's responsibility to secure the bag for the club. That's the club's responsibility. So like, if Saka walked out the door for free in a couple years and he joined Real Madrid and we got no money for that, right? I'd be furious. But now with Saka, I'd be furious with the club, because that is their mandate, to sit down with the players, with a good chunk of time remaining, right? Arsenal have been very smart about this, and they've sat down with their players at least 2+ years in advance before the contract runs out, and they've negotiated and they've extended contracts, and they've really done a great job of avoiding the scenario that Liverpool finds themselves in now. So, if that were to happen to us, I'd have plenty of nasty things to say, but not about Saka. They would be about the club, because I think it's just ridiculously irresponsible by Liverpool to let 3 legends, 3 guys who are probably on the Liverpool Mount Rushmore, walk out of that club without Liverpool receiving a dime in exchange. So
yeah,
I think it's just kind of not to be like overly critical, but I think it's just kind of shill behavior to put that on the player instead of the club. The club has to really handle business in that regard and get that done. So I don't know. I think personally, I think Trent's done everything he can, and like you said, he's 26 now. He's entering his prime. I mean, this is probably his last chance to get that last big contract before he enters his 30s, before clubs start, not wanting to take those risks on him, considering how long he's been playing for. And when Real Madrid come knocking and you get a chance to play with Rudiger and Valverde and Camavinga and Tchouaméni and Vinny and Mbappe and Rodrigo and like all these players, why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you take that chance? So, all the best to him. Not just because I'm an Arsenal fan, but I think it's going to be fun to watch. And I mean, that's 100% on Liverpool. So
I agree, and I think one of the other things is it'd be one thing if Trent was 30, 31, and the club didn't want to renew. They let his contract run down, and then he left on a free. He's 26 years old. He's about to begin the next season. Will start his prime, basically, give or take. He turns 27 in October, so he'll be 27 at the beginning of next season, basically. He's entering his prime now. So the fact that you allowed him the contract to run down that long, that's entirely on ownership, right? And I think, going back to what you said, if I watched KSE allow Saka to leave on a free before he was in his prime, and we got nothing for him, let alone not getting the 100+ million I would want, I'd be furious. It'd probably be the first time I would ever actually be officially, like, quote unquote, cronky out. I hate that term, but I think that'd be the first time I'd be that fuming with the ownership, because that's inexcusable to me. The way I look at squad building is you have core pieces, 4 or 5 players who you always want to build around, and obviously Trent's one of them at Liverpool. You have Trent, Van Dijk, you've got Salah, Alisson, and I would probably say, I guess, maybe someone like McAllister, right? So if 3 of those 5 are boiling down to their final months at the club contract-wise, and 2 of them may still extend, but the fact that you're cutting it this close shows really poor planning. And to me, that's just poor ownership. I agree with you with that. So again, you can't really begrudge them going, really. So, and also Real Madrid have a habit of this, right? They got Mbappe on a free, they got Rudiger on a free, and then they got who else am I thinking of? I'm gonna have to scroll.
They almost got Davies on a free.
That's right, and they got Alaba on a free. So Yeah, it's not like they don't go after top players on a free when you can. And yeah, there might be some tapping up involved, but when you know big clubs are interested, you don't want to ever give your star players an excuse to run down their contracts to get that big club move. Because yeah, sometimes you're gonna have to say, look, we might lose him to a bigger club than we do, but it's up to you to guarantee monetary compensation for some of your best players. And Trent, I don't know if he's £100 million player, but Liverpool could probably charge it. And would someone probably pay it? Maybe. If Real Madrid doesn't pay it, maybe Saudi pays it. I don't really know, but he is arguably, easily top three right backs in the world. And now you're allowing him to go on a free. That's to me that's inexcusable. So
yeah, I mean, if Saka walked out at the age of 26, on a free,
there'd be riots. Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
legitimately.
they'd burn the Emirates down.
Yeah.
And I think it's not to make it about us, right? But if Saka left for free after winning us 2 Premier Leagues and a Champions League, again, I'm looking at Arsenal for Saka. It's just a matter of me kind of thinking, I'm sorry that things didn't work out for you to stay, and all the best, and thank you for what you've done for us. Yeah, I don't know. I don't understand this going after the player thing. They're just doing what's best for them. Yeah, it honestly, Liverpool in this situation kind of remind me of. Did you ever watch Hard Knocks with the Giants?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it reminds me of that scene where what's the GM's name? I forget his name. Oh, Joe Shane. It reminds me of when Joe Shane called up Saquon Barkley and said, "Hey man, we're gonna let you hit the market and see what you can come up with out there, and if we like the number, we'll match it." And it was borderline arrogant, and it was so complacent. And then like John Mara walks in and basically says, "If he goes in division, I don't know how I'm going to sleep at night." Next scene, you're listening to them watching the TV as Saquon Barkley is announced as an Eagles player, and they just look stupid.
Because players want to feel like you want them there, and that's kind of why I look at FSG. Because if you're waiting that long to re-up on a contract for one of your best players, how is that going to make, say, like Trent feel? And I think that's the part where fans have to look at it, because if you asked Trent probably 12 months ago, does he want to stay at Liverpool, he probably would say yes. That's just my guess. I would say I don't know him. I would say he probably would still be on board. But as time has gone on and it's not been a priority of the club to not only extend him, but also to extend Salah and Van Dijk, what does that tell him and his entourage about, should I remain here? If we're not going to be valued like we feel like we should be, maybe we should look elsewhere. And players are allowed to change their minds. And I think fans forget that players are still humans, right?
Yeah.
So his mind's allowed to change. And I would probably guess that his mind probably did. Also, I think winning the Premier League this season again probably also didn't help. In a way, it's kind of like, well, now I've won it twice. Now I can go on and win something else. Maybe if Liverpool don't win the league this season, maybe he wants to stay in one of those thought processes of, I'm going to resign, or I'm going to extend rather. I want to win another one with the club or something. Winning this year maybe expedited that process. I don't know. That's also just another theory. But I just feel like it was so poorly handled. And I do think there was probably some measure of, I can't say for sure, but yeah, maybe you could think there's a bit of arrogance from FSG, because maybe their logic is, well, we topped the group of Champions League. We're winning Premier League by a considerable distance. Why wouldn't he want to resign? Well, there are still bigger clubs in Liverpool, So, I mean, if Bayern came or if Inter came, I'm sure he would turn them down. That's not like a massive upgrade. Particularly Inter isn't. Bayern maybe it's a slight upgrade, more so like a parallel move. But Real Madrid is Real Madrid. So,
and if I'm being fair, I can't really speak to the mindset of FSG in doing all this. But what I do feel confident in saying is, by allowing this situation to occur, by allowing Trent and Salah and Van Dijk to have contracts running out this summer, in a season in which they are going to win the Premier League, what they've done is they've created a set of circumstances in which it feels more like the end of an era than it does like the start of something new.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah.
And so, you have these guys who, Salah and Trent or Salah and Van Dijk are in their 30s now. So, they're kind of trying to get that last big contract. They're trying to see who wants them at that age. Trent is entering his prime. Like you said, really close friends with Bellingham. So like he's assessing his options. So I think for all three of them, again, they're going to win the Premier League for a second time. They've won the Champions League. They've won the League Cup. I think, have they won the FA Cup? I'm not sure. It's not important, but they've won all these trophies with Liverpool. Yeah. So now it's just a matter of, them kind of thinking about what's next. So that's why you have Trent going to Real Madrid. That's why you have Salah doing these interviews and saying, oh yeah, well, Liverpool haven't really offered me a contract yet. That's why you have Van Dijk talking to PSG officials after the match at Anfield. So, it's just not a good look. And that's why what I want to do at some point down the future is, or down the line in the future, is do an episode where we just kind of rank the top 5 and Spurs and kind of talk about how we feel about each of those clubs very honestly in the long term.
Yeah.
As a quick spoiler, this is why Liverpool is not going to be at the top of that list for me, because you're entering a summer in which you're going to have to replace Trent. You're going to have to replace Salah. You're going to have to replace Van Dijk. Maybe you have to replace Konate because there's been links to him leaving as well. That's a lot of incredible talent to replace in one window. I'm not sure they're going to do that. So, yeah, we'll see what happens with the other two, with Salah and Van Dijk. But it's just interesting to me to kind of draw those parallels between Liverpool and Arsenal in terms of what we would do if Saka left or something like that in similar circumstances. I do think we are going to have to deal with a similar situation in the near future, not really in terms of a player leaving for free, but I think we are going to have to make a big sale at some point. And,
there's only 2 players that would come under that, the auspices of a big sale, that aren't Saka, and it's one of Gabriel and Saliba. Genuinely, it's one of those 2. You could argue that both of them would be pushing, the envelope in terms of most expensive center back in history, in theory, just, given age profile, given how good they are. They're recognized as the best center back pairing in Premier League by most people. Yeah, I think, I don't know, listen, I didn't expect to have that conversation currently, and obviously we don't have to have a deep one, but yeah, I do feel like it's such a monumental hurdle to jump over when you're trying to replace such pivotal pieces. And I actually got into a group chat conversation about this. I think it was last week, and we were talking about, how would we, if we say we just sold Gabriel this summer for 100 million or whatever it was, how would we replace him? And we really struggled to come up with enough names that would actually come in and those players not have our standard drop considerably. It's difficult. The only one we really kind of settled on, not perfect, but maybe close, is Hussein from Bournemouth. That'd be the closest one, because he's ambipedal, so he's good with his left foot, and that's important to Arteta. He's got the age profile. He's already a Spanish international. He's already Premier League proven. He's good in the air, press resistant, good with the ball. So that would be the only person, right? But I think in terms of Liverpool, I agree with you that if they lose, I think they'll be fine if they just lose Trent. If they re-up Salah and Van Dijk, they could probably come close to replacing Trent. Like, for example, Jeremy Frimpong comes to mind, where you could maybe go after him, right, and just slot him in that right back, and maybe that's a pretty good immediate replacement. But if they lose 2 of those pieces, if not 3, that's a big ask for Arne Slot to go into after. Yeah, he's going to be on a high winning the Premier League, but how do you replace 2 or 3 pieces that are borderline irreplaceable, and 3 of, like we said, 3 of the 5 kind of cornerstone of your 11 that you want to build a team around long term? And if you're a new boss coming in, you're already losing your best players after one season. That's a tough ask, and Liverpool are not City. Liverpool more like us. They're not going to drop 300, 400 million in a window to replace 3 big names. It's just not feasible for them. So yeah, I would agree with you. I think that's going to be big questions for them if they have to replace more than one. So
Yeah, and that's why I hate these discussions about what phase Slot is in. Slot's not in a phase.
Yeah, not yet.
Yeah, Liverpool is at the final phase of their project, right? That's what's happening right now. And as soon as if we enter a summer where Salah and Van Dijk and Trent all leave, that's phase one for Slot. That's the first phase in which he has to rebuild that team and replace that outgoing talent, and either try to sustain this current level, or you're basically back to something of a rebuild. So yeah, we'll see what happens in that regard, and hopefully we aren't having any conversations about our own players in these set of circumstances anytime soon. But kind of another transfer topic that has been coming up recently, and it is kind of that time of year, especially since Premier League's gone, Champions League is still something of a long shot. People have turned their attention towards the summer. But another topic that's come up is Martin Zubimendi. And over the break, especially in the last few days, he was apparently linked to Real Madrid, right? There were sources from Spain coming out saying that Real Madrid were close to signing him. They had even overtaken Arsenal in terms of likelihood to acquire Zubimendi. Of course, all that was kind of poo-pooed by David Ornstein yesterday when he came out and said they hadn't heard anything, or not yesterday, it was today, when he came out and said he hadn't heard anything in regard to Real Madrid being linked to Zubimendi. And it sounded like it was, all but a done deal with us, and that we still expected him to arrive in the summer. So for those of you who were excited that we weren't signing Zubimendi, we're signing him. But I do think there have kind of been interesting debates around Zubimendi, and in terms of other six options that we could have brought in. I guess just kind of like the first thing here, Drew, is how do you feel about Zubimendi as a player, and do you think this is maybe the best option for us in terms of replacing Partey and Jorginho at the base of midfield?
Yeah, I think it is, because one of the first things I tell fans to do is, if you want to know what he's going to bring to us, don't watch him for Real Sociedad. You watch him for the Spanish national team. That's a closer indication of how we play. Sociedad do like a lot of the ball, but when they're in transition and when they're on the attack, they're different than we are. Spain love to control. They love that interchanging play as well ahead of the midfield, and they use him as a facilitator in midfield to connect the back line with midfield. He's very confident on the ball. He always makes the right decisions. He presses quite well. He knows how to patrol the passing lanes. That performance against the Netherlands was actually quite telling in terms of just what he can do in terms of those roles. I think a lot of fans got wrapped up in that nugget someone tried to drop about, Bruno Guimaraes, and then all of a sudden everyone's like, oh, let's go get him. And unless, like I always tell people, unless it comes from Ornstein, probably don't listen to it.
Also, real quick, here's my thing about Bruno. His qualities are great and all, and he's a very talented player.
Yeah.
As soon as that guy puts on an Arsenal jersey and keeps on doing, and keeps on committing the fouls that he commits to Newcastle now.
Yeah.
we got 4 bullshit red cards this season, and then one that was pretty reasonable. Double that next season if Bruno Guimaraes is an Arsenal player. Just wanted to add that.
He'll definitely be appreciated differently. That's probably a fair shout. I don't want to be all conspiracy theoristy, but I don't think you're necessarily wrong just based off the evidence of this season. He's also a different player than Zubimendi. I feel like Bruno fits Newcastle really well, and that's a lot of credit to Eddie Howe, what he's done with that midfield, bringing Tonali in as well. Look how well Joelinton has been redeveloped into a central midfielder. This was a striker when he played in the Bundesliga for Hoffenheim, and now he's all of a sudden like a really credible box-to-box midfielder for them. So I think Eddie Howe does a lot of credit for how he's built that midfield out with Bruno, and I just don't think he's the same type of midfielder we need. And I do think a lot of people want to push Rice back into the 6, and I think that's probably a lot of the conversation around why they want Bruno. But I think Rice continues to show, not just for Arsenal, but when he plays for England, is why he's so good at playing in the 8. And I think he's only gotten better with us there as well. With Zubimendi, he's not this like swashbuckling 6. He's going to give you an immense amount of control. He's a really good. He's presses. He always makes the right passes, and he's got some residual deeper ability on the ball that might take some pressure off of Ødegaard having to come deep all the time. That's also one of the things I think we also need. If we can keep Ødegaard, at least in the central third, more towards the final third, and just let him patrol those areas where he can kind of switch into the attack more readily availably, that would be big for us as well. Again, he's not like a big combative midfielder, but if you look at the data behind it, if you look at the FB ref with him, it gives you a lot of what I think we need from a 6. And for those of you who don't listen to Tom all that often, Tom Canton, who's a really good friend of mine, did a really good episode with Sid Lowe from the Spanish Football Podcast talking about Zubimendi. And why he's so highly rated by everybody in Spain, and why Real Madrid want him as well. And typically, if Real Madrid want a player, they're fully convinced. They usually don't just go like half-assing on somebody. So if they're genuinely keen, whether if they've had conversations or not is irrelevant, but if they're genuinely keen, that's a good sign. So I think for me, he gives us a lot of dynamics that we're currently lacking as a 6. And same thing, like questions about Partey. When Partey was good, he's good. But how many times has he made the wrong pass? Has he taken up the wrong space? Has he made the wrong decision? And with Zubimendi, you're getting a player who nullifies those things, right? And gives you more control, right? His positioning is much, much better. He's more of like Jorginho in that way, but just slightly more athletic. So I don't know. I just kind of feel like for me, for that price point as well, I think he's the one I would take us forward personally. I think it's going to be a key move that's actually going to kind of raise the level. It's kind of what you want.
Yeah, there's actually a compilation going around on Twitter of all of Partey's worst actions this season, and it's obviously that's only one side of how he's performed this season, but it's not great.
Yeah,
doesn't make for encouraging viewing. With regard to Zubimendi, I think here's the thing, right? Zubimendi is not my kind of 6, right? I'm definitely one of those guys who prefers a swashbuckling 6. If we're up to me, right, I would at least acquire a more traditional left 8, such as a Xavi or an Eze or a Doué, someone like that. I have regrets about this past summer. Because you saw players like that move clubs, and we weren't in there at all. We went and got Marino, right? And I've already written about this basically twice, so I'm not going to go into it. But I do kind of, just think what if every once in a while when it comes to that. But I would sign one of those players just so that in game states where we're up against a low block, we can play Rice at 6 and then play Ødegaard and another one of those guys as dual 8s and potentially break down the low block while also being able to stifle counterattacks. But with that being said, that's not how we want to play. And I think a lot of people are doing this thing with Zubimendi where they look at a player and they don't see a profile that's their personal favorite, and they decide that for that reason it's the wrong guy to sign. And I just can't agree with that this time around. And, I think the Jorginho comp is a really good one. Like you said, he strikes me as just a slightly more athletic Jorginho, slightly more mobile one. But I like Zubimendi a lot, and I think he'd fit into this team pretty well, especially because the thing that he does that makes me really excited about him if he were to join Arsenal is how fast he keeps play going, right? It's 1 or 2 touches on the ball max, and then he finds someone and pushes the ball up the pitch. And he does it with either foot. So, it's not like having to watch Partey get the ball into his right foot or watch Ødegaard get the ball into his left. He picks which foot is best for that situation and plays it up the pitch and just keeps things moving, keeps things ticking.
And a lot of it's one touch as well. He makes a lot of very good, very intelligent one touch passes where he'll receive from the defense. He already has his spot position open to make that pass. Right,
Yeah.
he's reading ahead of the game, and that's kind of what you want because that'll help us break down those stubborn mid blocks. Or if we're getting pressed by someone like a City, we can break that press really quickly and then get the ball to Odegaard or Saka or whoever. And then that might even allow us to be a little bit more springy on the counter than we usually are not now. Because sometimes we're so lethargic getting the ball out of the back, it allows teams to get back into shape. So if we're playing against someone like a Villa, where we can break through that central space quickly, then all of a sudden maybe we can actually be a bit more counterattacky for once, which I think would be great for us as well. It gives us another dynamic to our game that we kind of really don't have. And just one more thing, for those of you that didn't watch the Spain Netherlands game, he played with Duays ahead of him. He played with Dani Olmo and Fabian Ruiz ahead of him in a midfield three, and he was the base of the six, and he still played quite well. He had a really good performance. So I do think he would still allow you, like for example, if we're playing against one of those old back teams, I think you could technically still play him at six, and we could even risk one of those like things we talk about where it's one area at left eight with Odegaard at right eight or whatever. We could, in theory, test that out. Or if we bring in a striker, hopefully, you could even test out maybe Havertz at left eight and Odegaard, or Havertz at right eight, Odegaard at left eight, and then Zubimendi at the six still have that reliable player behind them that still is defensively stout, but would allow those two players to get forward and be more effective and in the middle third and the final third. I think that's why I think they will raise the level. So
Yeah, and excuse me. Yeah, that's exactly right, and that's. I think people focus too much on the individual quality inside the block sometimes, when another way to deal with our issues and build up, with our issues and creating chances, is to play faster. And that's been an issue with us all season, where it's lethargic. It's I would go so far as to say it's bureaucratic, the speed that we play at. And
that's bureaucratic football is a fantastic term. I love it. That's great.
I was listening to Jon Stewart and Ezra Klein talk about how slow government is on a podcast today, and I was thinking, yeah, it just kind of struck me. I was like, this is about how fast Arsenal play up the pitch. This whole season has really just been, giving the ball to Partey, and Partey taps it forward a little bit. Look, turns to the right, doesn't like what he sees, turns to the left. Maybe, I don't know, turns back to the right, lays it off. And at that point, and it's not just Partey.
At that point, though, that's it. They're back in shape. Yeah.
Yeah, like they've settled in, and if you give teams all that time, they're going to settle back into an organized formation defensively, and they're going to be hard to break down, especially in the Premier League, where you have some of the best talent in the world, where you have a lot of the best coaching talent in the world. If you play slowly, you're not going to catch teams out. You're not going to catch them by surprise. So, what I love about Zubimendi is that he offers us that. He offers us that ability to just snap into, the final third, to get the ball up the pitch quickly, whether that's in more settled play or in transition. And that's something that we could really use. And also, kind of like 5% of why I'd like to have Zubimendi at the club is you've got Zubimendi, you've got Odegaard, you've got Marino. We have Tierney as well, but he's leaving in the summer, so I'm not sure how much that counts for. But you have at least 3 former Real Sociedad players, and there's a guy who might change our lives. Who also used to play for Real Sociedad, who might be on the market as well.
We also have a manager who's from San Sebastian as well, so like that little connection would be kind of cool, actually. So There you go.
So if we're going after Alexander Isak, and being Arsenal and being based in London isn't enough for him, we can be like, hey, we've got 3 of your old friends here too. It'll be a little easier to bet in. So, I think people are being really harsh on Zubimendi, and he has his flaws, right? He's not supremely quick. He's probably going to need an adjustment period in terms of how he adapts to the physicality of the Premier League. But it just goes back to, the age-old thing about football where every player has flaws. And when you construct a team, you need to construct them in mind to cover the flaws of every player in there. And frankly, I'm not worried about Zubimendi playing at the base of midfield for us with those flaws in mind, right? Because he's going to have Saliba and Gabriel behind him. He's going to have probably Lewis Skelly tucking in from left mid next to him. He's going to have Rice, who's still able to play the two-way game, coming back on defense and helping out as well. So, it's not like this guy's going to just get caught on the counter 14 times a game and cost us. I think he's going to be way more of a positive than a negative for us. So, like you said, for the price that he's on offer for, I think it's a no-brainer, and I'm, based on the noises we're hearing, I'm pretty happy they're making it happen. Also, I just want to finish by saying it is hilarious that a Spanish outfit or a Spanish outlet called Cope was tweeting that Real Madrid might actually get their hands on Zubimendi, because that is indeed some very big copium. So I just thought it was very funny that was the case.
I don't have much more to say to that. I mean, I saw the outlet, but that's a great reference as well. So yeah, no. Just overall, I kind of feel like we're probably going to be talking about this topic quite a few times until the summer, until deals get done and whatnot. But I do think, same thing, like we've been after him for quite a while. Same thing with Nico Williams. If we get that deal done, we've been interested in Isak. We know that for a fact for a while. And whether we get Isak or not, it's irrelevant, because we've also been interested in Češko. So I do think the club have these targets in mind for a reason. I do think primarily that's why Andrea Berta is in. I think his primary directive this summer isn't going to be about talent ID. It's going to be about get these deals done. And then moving forward, it'll be about talent identification later on. And that's also something Tom mentioned on one of his previous shows. And it's something that makes sense to me, because he's got far more experience than Edu did in terms of getting deals done for big players, with Atleti for, what was it, almost 10 years basically. So I do feel like the summer isn't going to be about new names into the hat. I think it's going to be, we know the names, now we're just guaranteeing that they come in, and then we move forward with that. And I think that's all we could really ask for, to be honest with you.
Also, Berta used to be an accountant as well. So there's something to be said about his ability to make these signings make sense financially, and get a little bit more bang for your buck. I'm really excited about Berta, and I'm still kind of curious as to why we haven't announced him yet. I mean, the international break's almost up, Arsenal. I don't know, don't know what you're waiting for, but I think Zubimendi is gonna turn out to be a pretty important signing for us, and I'm looking forward to that happening. To close out, why don't we just talk briefly about our upcoming match against Fulham? So we're playing them on April 1st, which I think is a Tuesday, right? Friday's the 28th.
Yes, it is Tuesday. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I'm in no danger of missing that. So Fulham is coming to the Emirates on Tuesday, and we are going to play them. So just kind of to start off here, are there any players in particular from Fulham that you're worried about in this match?
I mean, no. I think collectively Fulham are obviously a decent side. They're top half of the table. They don't ever really have any stand-up performers for me. I think the biggest thing for me is, like we kind of just talked about it before, it's gonna be making sure we can capitalize on any amount of space we'll find, because they're gonna hunker down. They're not gonna go toe to toe with us, right? Jedi might not be there. Actually, he's doubtful at the moment, so that would be actually a big win for us. We don't have to deal with him, his overlapping runs, his recovery pace, that kind of thing, his ability to serve. I'm pretty sure he's the club leader in assists this season. He's up there as well for left backs and assists, so not having to deal with him would be a win.
Also, Tete might be out as well.
Yeah, which is also, and he's been decent. So I think apart from that, no one particularly worries me. It's just one of those tricky matches. Like, they've got some decent results in them lately. Obviously, Spurs are a disaster season, but they did beat Spurs. I'm pretty sure they drew United. So obviously we're streets ahead of those two teams, but like there's still a decent side, and it could be reminiscent of one of those like Everton matches where they're just going to frustrate you all game and try to hit you on the break, and it's up to us to break them down. And it could be one of those things. Ironically, if it's kind of one of those like 0-0 or 1-1 things, last 20 minutes, we might see Saka come on and try to inspire or something like that. I don't know if we will. Despite that, it's got to be 3 points, right? Obviously we've got quite a few people out, but just in terms of we have to. These are those matches that we tripped up with last season that we can't trip up now because despite the title being over, I still want to finish runner up again. I want to keep momentum going into the Real Madrid fixture. I want to keep momentum coming out of the international break. Again, decent side, but we're at home. It's got to be 3 points for me. So
yeah, and Fulham is it's one of those games that inspires some apprehension because they have kind of had our number recently, right? Over the last couple seasons, they are a team that has consistently caused us to drop points just because of the fact. I mean, they just exploit the matchup against us. They know what we're not good at, and they're pretty good at dealing with that, which is our ability to break down mid and low blocks. So I think the key here will be scoring early, and obviously forcing them into a game script where they have to actually commit bodies forward and leave some space in behind. I think it's like you said. I think it's one of those things where there aren't really any players on that team that concern me individually speaking, right? I think they're probably going to start either Muniz or Jimenez up front. They have Smith Rowe. They've got Iwobi and Adama Traore, who I think are really good players. But again, not
Sanderberg as well. He was excellent against us earlier this season when we met them the first time. He was one of their best players.
Wait, they got Sanderberg?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, man, I forgot about that.
Yeah, so he was arguably their best player, but I mean, apart from him, and then you had Anthony Robinson and Kenny Tete on both defensive flanks. They were also very, very good.
Yeah.
But when we played them last time, they had 2 shots in 90 minutes. They had that one Jimenez chance, and then that was basically it for the rest of the game. And we had the Saka kind of bailed us out, right? But it was one-way traffic all match. But I agree with you. I think if we get that first goal, cause them to try to open up, I think it's dusted. But if we go in behind again on some sort of early nonsense or whatever it is, it's going to be one of the same things where we're going to be struggling, and we don't need that right now. I want a comfortable result coming in the national break. Get the first goal, put them to bed by halftime if possible, especially if they're missing some of their key players. As we said before, Jedi and Tete, if they're out, that's a big win for us as well. So
yeah. And the thing that annoyed me about that game, thinking back, is Kivior had to start there because Gabriel wasn't available, and so it was kind of Kivior who let Jimenez run off him, and then Jimenez scored a chance that was like worth 0.09 xG or something like that. It was.
And Partey was at right back as well.
And Partey was a right back. Yeah. So, I think we're already going into this a little bit more fortunate. Obviously, Fulham are missing their starting wing-backs. Or sorry, not wing-backs. They're starting full-backs. And, it's just one of those things where I don't think we're going to really be able to outmatch them physically. I'm not saying they'll outmatch us physically. I think it'll be quite even. And it's just really a case of playing with tempo, playing with intent, and Leandro Trossard, I'm talking to you. Make that clean contact with the ball when you get opportunities to shoot, and pull the trigger early. I might be talking to Martin Odegaard too, because his shooting has not been great this season. But yeah, I think it is a pretty straightforward affair. It's really just make the most of your chances. Don't make any mistakes at the back, and really just try to put this put this game to bed early, and then force them into a difficult situation. So we'll see what happens there. I feel optimistic about it, but again, this is one of those games where it can really it can go tits up pretty quickly. So who are you expecting to see as the starting 11 against Fulham?
I mean, if everybody's fit, probably something similar to what we saw against Chelsea. Obviously, Calafiori is not going to be playing, so it wouldn't shock me if White is. So it wouldn't shock me to see Timber left back, White right back, and then the usual center back pairing, and then you've got obviously David Ryan, and I think the front three will probably. I don't think Saka's going to start. I think we agree there. I think it'll probably end up being, could be like Neri, Martinelli, Trossard, and then Sterling off the bench, depending on how. When it comes through for the rest of the action rate, we might not see him. You might actually see Sterling instead. I'm not quite sure. And then midfield three would Odegaard, Rice, and Partey probably. So I think we'll probably see like the best possible 11 we have on paper, at least in terms of who's available, and that's got to be good enough. Especially with the full defensive four, which again we didn't have against Fulham the first time we played them earlier this season. I think if you put that into play, they shouldn't really be getting chances against us, to be honest with you. Yeah, I think that would be the 11. At least I would go with that. And for me, that's got to be good enough. So,
I think we're going to see probably an 11 of Raya, Timber, Saliba, Gabriel, Lewis, Skelly, Partey, Odegaard.
Oh, sorry, thank you. Yeah, you should be starting. Yeah, there you go. So, yeah, Lewis, Skelly left back, Timber right back. Sorry.
Yeah, and then Partey, Odegaard, Rice, midfield, Waneri, Marino, Martinelli.
Yeah, I'd go with it too. Yeah, that makes sense.
Up front. And I think the biggest reason for optimism in this game is we're finally back to being in a place where we have the substitutions on the bench to really impact the match. We can, if we're at 60, 65, 70 minutes and it's still 1-0, or sorry, it's still 0-0, or even if we find ourselves down or something like that and we're really struggling to create some openings, you can sub on White for Timber, you can sub on Saka for Waneri, you can sub on Trossard for Martinelli, and kind of affect change that way. And I think those are all players who can really come on and make an impact there. So yeah, I'm expecting like a narrow, like 1-0, 2-1 win, something like that. And just give me 3 points and 15, 20 minutes for Saka, and I think I'll be okay with that. So
yeah, no, I agree. Again, like what I said with the Chelsea result, at this point on, apart from what we want to see in like kind of hit and hope in Champions League, for the league, 3 points when we need to be getting 3 points. I'm not overly fussed about how well we're performing until we're really back up to like full speed. Obviously, we're not going to see Havertz or Jesus for the rest of the season, but once we have everybody else fully back, I feel like then I'm going to be worried more about the levels. But at the moment in time, it's just consistent results. Teams we need to be beating, and that's kind of it. So before we end real fast, I had a chance to Google what happened. It's indecent conduct, and they're facing a UEFA ban against Atletico Madrid in the celebrations post knocking them out. So it's Rudiger, Ceballos, Vinny Jr., and Rodrigo all face potential bans. So that's what the issue is. Again, my guess would be it is, but my guess would be though, like if anything actually happens with that, they'll probably serve the ban at like if they get one at the beginning of next Champions League season. I don't think they're going to strip them of this season because it's Real Madrid. But anyone could be wrong. I could be wrong, obviously, but that's what it is, though. Yeah,
I think it's far more likely that you're right, but we'll see. Not expecting much there. We'll go ahead and put a bow on this here. We're a little over the hour mark, so thank you all for being here with us and kind of being a part of the conversation as we went through Saka's return and then Trent's departure and the Zubimendi conversation and reviewing Fulham. Thank you for being here for all of that. We will be back. I don't know. Timing's interesting because it's a Tuesday game. We'll see. Either Monday or Thursday, we'll chat and we'll talk about either the Fulham match and some other things that happen along the way. Either way, I'm Sham. You can follow me on Twitter at Shamsdale. That's Drew. You can follow him on Twitter at Geechee Kid and Supply and Demand Drew.bsky.social on Blue Sky. And you can follow the pod on Twitter and on Blue Sky at Not That Gooner. You can follow the pod on Instagram at Not That Kind of Gooner. You can follow them and subscribe on YouTube at Not That Kind of Gooner. And please do, give us 5 stars on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Really does help out in terms of getting the pod out there in front of people. And if you have any questions, if you have any feedback, you can email us at notthatkindofgooner@gmail.com. We're open to any kind of feedback. If you got any questions that you want to hear answered on the pod, let us know. And thanks again for being here. So we will be back with you probably after the Fulham match. But until then, take care and bye. Bye.
Secret Gooner. All right, I'm a Gooner. Oh, I love you.
Santi Cazorla!
Kayo